and he'll be talking about how QBRs are stupid, while QBRs are also sometimes smart. So, Aaron Thompson is a world renowned customer success keynote speaker and educator. He's the Chief Revenue Officer at Success Coaching, the world's leader in customer success training and education. He's also the CEO and founder of redslacks.com, an online library for free CS educational content. So Aaron has decades of training and instructional design experience and has built and scaled numerous CS organizations from scratch. This real world background in both disciplines uniquely positions him as an educator in the discipline of customer success. Aaron is also a very active participant in the global CS community and has consistently he challenges the industry norms to improve and grow the CS function in its entirety. So when he's not evangelizing for customer success best practices, Aaron enjoys spending time with his friends and family. And he's also a golfer and a skier. So it gives me a lot of pleasure in welcoming Aaron on stage. Can we have Aaron on stage, please?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did.
Hey, Aaron.
Now it's just spinning. Hey, am I on stage?
Yes, you're on stage.
All right. We're trying to figure out how to get the slides to show up. Wouldn't be a virtual conference without technical difficulties.
True. Do you see the screen share button in the bottom?
Yeah, I've got that. And when I do the PDF screen share, it just kind of spins. It doesn't do anything. So I don't know. Do you guys want me to email you? Like maybe one of you share?
We can do that. So if you can email us the PDF or the PPT, then we'll have someone share.
Yeah, let me. What would you
Adam,
prefer?
Can you just try one last time? Because I think it almost came up this time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me try.
It may take a few moments, but I think.
Can you see it spinning like that on your end?
No, we don't see it.
Not yet, but I think it'll be there shortly is my feeling. But meanwhile, we'll also fetch the content and upload it from our side.
Here, let me email it to you while we're waiting on that, Sri.
All right.
Let's see.
There we go. We got it.
Is it up?
Yeah.
Really? It shows on your end?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. I can see it now. It still looks like it's kind of. So do you guys move these slides forward for me, or am I going to be advancing them?
So Aaron, so the PPT apparently is being projected by our team member on our end. So if you can give us a cue as to when you want the slide to change, that'll be really helpful.
Okay, so I can do stop screen share on my end then?
Yeah, I think you can.
Okay. There, okay. I think it's coming back up, and I'm not sharing anything. So I'll just say when we're gonna go next slide, and we'll go from there. Nothing like troubleshooting on a live stage in front of an audience. I love it. Makes me feel like I should be like a weatherman or something. So, hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to QBRs are stupid. OBRs are smart. QBRs, I don't have enough time in 30 minutes to get into it, but I am happy to talk to anybody about my take on QBRs. You can also go to redslacks.com and read an article and see some webinars about why I think QBRs are stupid. What I'm here to talk about today, though, is why onboarding business reviews are smart. And so that's what we're going to cover. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at a company called Success Coaching. That's our logo. We believe we are all unicorns if we get the right tools, and that's what we aim to do. We have certifications and training in customer success management. What we're going to go over there, I think you can see the agenda. What is an OBR? I'll define what an onboarding business review is. We'll talk about when to deliver it relative to the customer lifecycle. Talk about the almighty dollar, right? That's always fun. We always want to try to tie everything back to revenue in customer success. And then I'm actually going to give you all an auditing tool that you can use to begin building out your first OBR, as well as just audit your overall onboarding experience today. and find gaps where there's areas for improvement. And then I think we've got time for Q&A at the end of it. I will do my best to get through this in the next 20 minutes or so. That'll give us a little time and get us back on track. Speaking of on track, so before we get started, we can move over to the next slide. I just want to make sure that we establish a few things. First off, next slide, the definition of success, just so we're all on the same page with these two kind of very foundational understandings of customer success management. The customer's definition of success, whoa, that went fast, equals the customer's desired outcome plus the customer's desired experience. So I'm going to talk about COs a lot, and when I say that, what I'm referring to are desired outcomes. And then the second piece I want everybody to be aware of are the 3 Ds of customer success, which that's basically what this whole discipline comes down to, is we're going to define, we're going to deliver, and we're going to demonstrate what success is for any given human. When I say customer, I mean human, because we all have our own desired outcomes and our own desired experiences that we're looking to achieve. And when we do the 3 Ds effectively, that's when we can actually guarantee renewal, see expansion, unlock that ever elusive exponential growth. So just define, deliver, demonstrate on the 3 Ds and the definition. Okay, now we can move on to the next slide. So first off, what is an OBR? And being a Portland Trailblazers fan, if anybody remembers the 1992 NBA Finals, this was a very painful image for me to put on here. That was after Michael Jordan famously hit, I think, his 5th 3 in a row. But when I Googled shrugging images, that came up, and I thought it was a good one. So even though it pains me, I hope you can appreciate that. So what is an OBR? Let's define it. So when I looked at how to define what outcome, I do this outcome-based selling stuff. And so OBS and OBR, it keeps getting mucked up. When we look to define an OBR, we can go next slide. What I wanted to do was start with defining onboarding and how we define it at Success Coaching. So first and foremost, this is the process of helping a new customer, number one. It could also be an existing customer who purchased a new SKU or product or service. We're helping them get set up and trained. And if there is implementation, configuration, custom coding, whatever we need to do to get them up and running. And then the third piece of onboarding definition is that we are delivering some business value. We're not going to deliver all the business value to exit our onboarding stage, but we want to deliver some, and then we actually want to dole out the rest through the rest of that contract as they become more mature with our products and services. So there's the definition of onboarding. And then next slide, as we define when we consider onboarding complete at Success Coaching. First off is that we've achieved first value. Again, not all the value, but we're achieving some value, some compelling business value as we leave onboarding and move into what I call the optimized stage, which I'll show you a little later in the presentation. Number two, that they feel confident, at least somewhat, right? They don't have their legs under them yet. That typically takes about 120 to 180 days on average for them to really know who to go to with what issue and what bells and whistles to use in the product, what configuration options we have. And I'll talk again about that optimized feeling, but they do need to feel somewhat confident in how to use the product and service. And then the most tricky thing of all is establishing that habit by use case, bringing them in. Not every product needs to be a daily active user, right? We think of that a lot, like DAU over MAU, and not all products work that way. If you have a project-related product, maybe I only need to use it when I'm doing that type of a project. And so I might come in daily for a month or two, and then I might disappear. And that's okay if that's the use case. But if you have a daily type of mission critical application, then maybe we do want to try to track towards daily users. But whatever it is for your use case, you need to establish that habit. I didn't have you yesterday. I buy you today. What are you doing through onboarding and as we exit it to ensure I come back in tomorrow? Okay, next up. So there's the definition of onboarding. And when we consider it complete, now let's talk about business reviews and how we define those. So this is a consistently delivered event. Click. There we go. It doesn't have to be a meeting. And this gets into why I think QBRs are stupid, because we drag our executive sponsors into these quarterly meetings that they don't want to go to. And again, I don't have enough time to get into it, but just trust me, it doesn't have to be a meeting. In fact, Spotify's 2021 Wrapped 2021 is an annual business review for their millions of subscribers. They demonstrate the value that you've been getting for your subscription last year, for example. And when we're in there, we want to identify those business goals, desired outcomes. And this is going to come down to two things. You've got pains to relieve or gains to achieve, and maybe hopefully both. But when we develop these outcomes with our customers, and then we can use the business review to identify what those goals are and then align with how we're going to help them achieve those. And then we'll go on to the next slide. And speaking of your support achieving them, that's our goal there, to align with the executive stakeholder on what they want to do. I hate to break it to you, folks. Your customers don't care about what your product is. They care about what your product does. It's a tool for them to achieve some outcome. And our goal is to support them in achieving those goals. So we'll go on to the next slide and we'll see what happens all right, it's just going to all be there. That'll work. So when we consider a business review completed, is that we have focused on those business goals and how we can support them. Business reviews should be 100% strategic, not tactical. If they want to talk about support tickets or bugs or something, that's fine, but it's not a business review. That's a tactical conversation. We're there to talk again about those business goals. It's a 50-50 exercise of retrospective and prospective. What have we helped you accomplish, and what are we going to help you accomplish next? The frequency, it should change. Hint, hint, quarterly stupid. Your customer's life is not consistent. It has cycles. There's times where I'm busy and I don't want to talk to you. And there's times where I'm less busy and I'm more open to sitting down and having that strategic conversation. But certainly to try to impose a quarterly cadence is just asinine. It's ludicrous. And I am begging the whole customer success industry to rid ourselves of this friction-filled experience of a QBR. And again, got a lot more information on that if you're interested. It must include the stakeholders. It doesn't have to be a live meeting, but if you are not with your executive stakeholder, and who I mean by that is whoever makes the purchasing decision, whoever makes the decision to renew and ultimately made the initial decision to buy, if they're not in the meeting, it's not a business review. We can gain a deeper understanding once again, and then it's a great opportunity. And notice how I bolded value demonstration. That's that third D. That's why business reviews are a necessary evil. We've got to demonstrate the value that they've got, or else they're not going to keep renewing and paying us that subscription. And so we have to do it somehow. We just don't have to do it through a quarterly hour-long presentation that god-awful starts with your company and your founding story and information about you that I, as your customer, do not care. Okay, moving on. So that's how we define onboarding, and that's how we define business reviews. So we can go to the next slide. And now we can take those and munge them together and define a new type of meeting, an onboarding business review. And notice it's an inconsistently delivered event. Again, it doesn't have to be a meeting. This could be some sort of, we can get creative with how we would do this, but it is an event that is inconsistent. This is something we're going to do one time as they exit onboarding to review what we've done to get to that point, because those are business milestones. I can't get value if I don't get onboarded. So what did we do to get there? Let's celebrate that. And then let's look at the future and where we're moving in terms of the overall COs that we're going to help them achieve. So that takes us to point number 2. We're going to identify what these business goals are. Again, all reverted back to that North Star of that very basic, luckily for my little chicken brain, that very basic definition of CS equals CO plus CX. And then the third point here is that we're going to align with them around how we can help them, so help support them in achieving those desired outcomes. And we're going to do it by way of their desired experience. And I can talk a little bit more about that. But going back to why QBRs are stupid, That's where you are actually inflicting friction for your customer on the CX side when you force them into that QBR. Okay, next slide. So now let's talk about when we would look at what an onboarding business review looks like completed. All right, so we verified not only what success is, but as importantly, how we will get them there. And this gets into your success planning function. Hopefully you're all doing that, and I'll talk about the ideal place to do that a little later in the slide deck. But we're there to talk about not only the definition of COs and CXs, but how we're going to deliver that. And then there's your success planning. 50% strategic and 50% tactical. So when we were doing the business review, it's 100% strategic, 0% tactical, and OBR is slightly different because we're going to talk about the COs, those are your strategic initiatives, and then we're going to talk about the CXs, which are your tactical. How do you want us to deliver this? So that we can say, if we give you this outcome and we do it by way of this experience, would you consider that success? And once we get to that agreed definition, now we've got our North Star on what we can deliver, and then it's just a matter of the demonstration. It is 100% future planning. We're getting to know them. We're getting to know their people, their process, and we're getting to know their desired outcomes and experiences. This is a one-time event per SKU as part of a robust customer onboarding program. And as you can see there, we have to have the key stakeholders and champions. And then if you're not doing a CES, here's your chance to implement it. Customer effort score, talk to them about what that experience was like in terms of friction. Okay, moving on. And I think I'm moving, 10 minutes, it says. All right, so when to deliver these relative to the customer life cycle. Next slide. So this is a basic land and expand sales funnel. You can go next slide. There we go. Up there in the red is your marketing team doing your demand generation and awareness. Outbound, inbound, pay-per-click, webinars, blog posts, you name it. Funny looking logos with donkeys and plungers. Whatever it is that you do so people know you exist, that's up there at the top. Next slide. The green in the middle is your sales team, shepherding that evaluation process and ultimately helping them decide if you are the right vendor or solution for the pain or gain that they're looking to solve. Next slide. Then we move into customer success. Activate is your onboarding experience. Next slide. Optimize is when you get about 180 days in. Like I was saying, they've got their legs under them and they are no shelfware, industry best practices, etc. When we do the 3Ds effectively, define, deliver, and demonstrate that to me, next slide, that'll move into renewal. Renewal becomes a byproduct of the life cycle if I know without a shadow of a doubt the value that I'm getting. And if you are delivering my personal definition of success, I will renew. I don't need to go back to the top of the funnel. Okay, next slide. That's where the OBR should be delivered. As they're exiting activation and entering their optimized stage, we want to run this onboarding business review to talk about what we've done and then align around what the future looks like. Next slide. Okay, success planning. Ideally, you'll do success planning at 75 to 90% probability to close. Too many organizations today are doing success planning post-sale, meaning we have sold products, features, and functions, and now the poor CSM or onboarding specialist or success planner has to have a conversation around outcomes and business milestones. And the customer didn't buy outcomes. They didn't even think about it necessarily. They were thinking about products, features, and functions. And so up there is our chance to right-size the contract pre-sale if we determine that this is a stretch fit customer. Yeah, it can do that, but it's not designed for it. Well, what that means is we need to right-size it up there. So ideally, you'll do success planning there, but you may end up needing to do it post-sale. Most orgs do it post-sale, but the innovative ones, the ones that are really moving the needle, are moving the success planning function top of funnel. Next slide. We're cruising. All right, so with effective success planning and an effective outcome onboarding business review, we now have aligned ourselves with what they really care about, what it should do for them, what it should solve for them, not what it is. Next slide. Okay, so now let's talk about revenue. We can keep moving. So when we look at revenue and specific to onboarding, there's some things that we have to address within onboarding. So first off, these are the 4 kind of reasons onboarding is so dang difficult, which then leads to why it's so dang important for customer success in its entirety. Next slide. So the relationship transition, right there at the top of the funnel. Next slide. We'll just keep moving here. They come through the funnel. Okay, we get to sales. And now here they are moving from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel for the first time. They built a relationship with their salesperson, and that salesperson is now handing them off, and I'll talk about a handshake later, but moving them to the operational side. You can stick on that slide. It's cool. We'll keep going. But as they move through that, that adds friction, adds anxiety. Add to that the information that we learned at the top of the funnel sometimes does not travel with them to the bottom. And that's where success planning is critical. Next slide. And so if we have siloed data and I have to repeat myself in onboarding about things that I talked to your sales rep about in the pre-sales function, I'm not going to like that. That's going to bother me as a customer. It shows that you're out of sync with why I bought the product or solution. And so again, doing success planning top of funnel allows us to knock down those data silos because we're already talking about not what they're buying. We're talking about what it's going to do when they do buy it. And that's the critical piece. Next slide. And so with success planning and effective OBR, we knock down those data silos and we create this synchronous function from the top of the funnel down to the bottom. Next slide. All right, so then there's 2 other areas that you need to be aware of. Change in communication cadence. Wait, when I was in the top of the funnel, my salesperson called me all the time. They were proactive and reaching out to me, making sure there was nothing I needed. And now all of a sudden, I meet with my CSM once a week. What happened? Where did I go? I used to be so important to you. That creates friction. That just the nature of that change in communication cadence. And then, of course, we've got to overcome buyer's remorse. And I hope that everybody's screens are big enough to see this. I was planning on jumping back and forth from slides to live, but we'll go with this. This is what buyer's remorse looks like. When I was looking at purchasing your solution, I was this productive over time. Okay, I'm measuring productivity over time. And I was right here. And then I investigated you and evaluated you, and your sales team sold me some promise of higher level of productivity. And I think that it's going to be a straight line. Joke's on me. Of course, we never get faster before we get slower. We'll always go down before we can come back up. And the deeper that trough goes this way, and the longer it goes that way, the more likely you are to lose the customer or even have them just say, you know what, forget it. It's too hard. I'm just going to go back and use my spreadsheets or whatever I was doing before. You've got to overcome that trough of disillusionment with your buyer. You've also got to overcome it with your users because they didn't even decide to buy you. And now all of a sudden they're stuck down here. Our job in onboarding and what OBRs help with is letting them see the reality and that this vision is in fact going to come true. Okay, next slide. All right, so here's the areas where we're going to affect revenue by way of the transition, the silos data, the cadence and communication change, and then the buyer's remorse. We're going to move through this to save some time. Next slide. All right, let's just keep moving. We're going to keep cruising. They onboard, OBR delivery, we'll keep moving. Once we get them to optimize, then that's what leads to renewal. When we can create a frictionless onboarding experience and align with them from the pre-sale, well, it's over there, to the post-sale, we'll be able to eliminate those friction points, and then that creates higher renewal rates. Moving on. If you deliver my 3Ds effectively, it will lead to expansion because you will be my trusted advisor. You're defining, delivering, and demonstrating that to me. I have no shadow of a doubt the value I'm getting. It's going to be in my best interest to buy more, use more, spend more. So your expansion revenue, that's why the funnel gets bigger down there, is going to increase because you're more outcome aligned with everything you do. Next slide. When you do that effectively and you make people's lives better, they will become advocates for you. Next slide. Who they talk to is a customer success qualified lead. Notice how that lead comes into the middle of the funnel. We didn't have to market to that lead at the top of the funnel. And that then leads to 1/13 the customer acquisition cost. So there's the 3 revenue streams that'll be positively affected by implementing an onboarding business review. Higher retention, greater expansion, more and less expensive net new revenue than the top of the funnel. Next slide. All right, so now let's talk about your process. Next slide. 5 goals of onboarding business reviews. First off, here we go. Let's see, maybe it'll load them all. Okay, understand the customer's needs. That's the goal of all of onboarding, and most importantly, the onboarding business review. Next slide. From there, we can agree on that common definition of success. And if you come to a customer and say, what's your definition of success? They won't know. But if you ask them what the outcomes are that you're achieving and how they want to do it, they can tell you that, and you can back into that CS equals CO plus CX. Next slide. We're going to educate and motivate end users. We want to navigate that trough of disillusionment. We want them to get excited about it. And so this is an engagement model here on the left side. And as you can see here, pre-sale, onboarding, live, renewal. 4 stages of the customer lifecycle, measuring effort over time. When you're in onboarding, you're going to give them accolades early and often and get them excited about using your product so they can start to see the vision is a possibility and will be a reality. And so as they are moving through and the level of effort's going through the roof, we're going to be giving them accolades and creating that excitement and acceleration. Next slide, number 4. Manage change. This is the tricky one. I didn't have you yesterday, I buy you today. What are you doing tomorrow to bring me back into the product with intention? So we have a whole module on change management, but that's a critical part of onboarding business reviews, is navigating that. And really that's what drives adoption and engagement of your product or solution. Next slide. Okay, and then number 5, we're going to reinforce that value promise. We're going to show the value proposition and really let them understand that, again, it's about that value realization that we have to have them acknowledge and identify so that we know without a shadow of a doubt that they perceive what we perceive. All right, next slide. Okay, elements of a successful onboarding business review. Robust handshake. Notice I said handshake, not handoff. Get customer success pre-sale at 75 to 90. Keep the sales team at least in the picture until they get through onboarding. And now there's not this throw it over the fence kind of sentiment, but rather from the customer experience, a cohesive handshake. You must understand your journey, put playbooks together so there's consistency, come up with some metrics to track, and then you're going to communicate in the progress and value realization so they don't have a shadow of a doubt. Next slide. All right, take a screenshot of that. This is your onboarding business review and onboarding in general, your 10 stages of an effective onboarding process. Knowledge transfer all the way down to the project wrap up and feedback. If you go to the next slide, I can show you an example, and I'm happy to share this out with anyone. If you message me afterwards, I can get you a digital version of that. So there's what it looks like. You take RACI and you use responsible, accountable, consulted, informed, and you rate on a scale of 1 to 5 across the 10 stages how effective you feel your organization is at that stage. And then you look at customer success's involvement. And you say, like, number 1, knowledge transfer. It's a 5 because customer success is consulted. We believe all they need to be is consulted, and we have a good integration with sales, et cetera, et cetera. Moving down to stage number 2, expectation setting. Should actually say expectation resetting, by the way, because there's always going to be a misaligned expectation. We're a 2 on that one. We're only informed, but we should be consulted. That's a gap. And then we extrapolate why we believe there's a gap there. So you go through this, you audit your organization, and you will identify gaps in your process and places for you to create improvement and reduce friction in your onboarding experience. And specifically, you can do this as part of your onboarding business review. Next slide. Whew. All right, we got to Q&A, only 3 minutes after the bottom of the hour. Happy to open this up for as long as we've got left. Apologies for the technical difficulties, but I think we got there. I know you're all going to get the slides, the recordings, and like I said, I'm happy to share out that audit tool as well. Woo.
Oh, Thank you so much, Aaron. I think this is like a applause-worthy presentation and an ideal close to Propel 2022. So thank you so much. Someone said that your energy is so infectious, and that's so true. So I
Well,
think
I love
you've
this
all,
stuff. So thank you for the opportunity to be part of this, especially the closing keynote. You got to end these babies on a bang, So hopefully everybody enjoyed it.
absolutely. I think you might have also like sort of intimidated people because there are no questions in the. People are still like taking in and processing everything that you've said. But in the meantime, I have a question for you. So, who all do you think need to be involved in the OBR process?
I think in the onboarding business review, I mean, obviously it's going to differ if you have like an implementation team versus the CSM does it, or however that looks. But anybody who's involved in, apologies, but this is ugly from some coaching stuff I was doing earlier today. But you can see the funnel up there at least, and I'm a visual guy. I got to make it easy for my little chicken brain. So anybody who's going to be involved from here when they decide to become a customer all the way down through here, activate, needs to be in the OBR that, again, it's happening right there as they're exiting. So sales, the AE, they're not going to run the meeting, but they need to be there to represent the relationship that the customer fell in love with during evaluate and then ultimately decided to buy from. And then hopefully, if we can do 75 to 90 on the success planning, hopefully we've already been introduced, but if not, we're going to get introduced at activation, and then obviously those implementation teams, et cetera. On the customer side, I want to have, it's like a QBR. Ugh, I hate that term. But we're going to have the executive stakeholder. I'm going to call it an EBR. We're going to have the executive business review. So we have that buyer in there, probably the champion, maybe even some end users, so that we can all create alignment around, hey, look what we did. We got you from here through here. It is the most difficult part of your life cycle, right? It's the highest level of effort you're going to have through your entire journey with us. And look, here we are. We're at go live right there. And so we can celebrate that. And then we can align on everything we're going to do through the contract from that point to the point of renewal.
All right. So one final question is, what should we do if we get negative reviews during the OBR?
Oh, that's a great point. And running that CES, customer effort survey, right? Or customer effort score, that helps you identify where their perceived level of friction is. Because what happens is we onboard hundreds, thousands, whatever customers, and we start thinking, man, our customers are just stupid. Like all it takes is 2 lines of code on your web page and you're up and running. It should be so easy, but they're all so dumb. Turns out that's not it. It's not that they're dumb. It's that it's the first time they've ever done it. You've done it 100 times. And so you are so out of touch with their perspective that a CES helps you stay in that, closer to that perspective and remove those perceived levels or areas of friction. And so when you get a negative review in there or you get a negative CES score, that's a golden opportunity to go improve what this stage looks like for the next customer when they go through onboarding.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
We definitely hope to have you again next year if we do this again. So thank you so much.
Oh, I hope you do it again, and I can't wait. Yeah, let's get it started now. I love it.
Absolutely.
Congrats on a successful event, and thanks again for the opportunity to be a part of it.
Thank you. Likewise. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we've come to the final part of Propel 2022, where we'll be bringing on Sri Krishnan, the CEO of Rocket Lane, once again to deliver the closing remarks. So, thank you so much. We hope you had a good time.